20 years of service, countless sacrifices, and a rank achieved through sheer grit meant nothing to the family who still saw the high school misfit. To them, she was the disappointing failure, dressed in a simple gown at the country club gala. But when the massive black helicopter shredded the night sky, their mocking laughter died in their throats. The invitation to the Oak Ridge Elite Preparatory Academy's joint decade reunion had been sitting on my desk at the Pentagon for 3 months. I had originally intended to throw it away. After all, when your daily schedule involves analyzing satellite imagery of hostile territories and authorizing covert extraction missions, a cocktail party with high school alumni doesn't exactly make the priority list. But my mother, Patricia, had called. It was the first time she had called me in 2 years. Rosalie, she had sighed through the receiver, her tone dripping with that familiar, exhausted condescension. Jessica's husband, Todd, is being honored as alumnus of the decade at the reunion gala. The whole family is expected to be there. I know you're still doing whatever it is you do in the army, but please try to get the weekend off. It looks terrible when we have to explain your absence. Not we miss you, not we want to see you, just it looks terrible. I had a rare 48-hour window between joint task force operations. Against my better judgment, I requested the leave. I rented a sensible, mid-sized sedan at the airport and drove out to the sprawling, manicured suburbs of my youth. I didn't arrive in my dress blues. I didn't arrive with an entourage. I wore a simple, tailored navy blue dress off the rack, comfortable and unassuming. When I pulled into the circular driveway of my parents' estate, it was already crowded with luxury vehicles. My sister Jessica's silver Porsche was parked right near the front steps, an aggressive monument to her marriage into hedge fund wealth. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my overnight bag and walked through the mahogany front doors. The house smelled of expensive lilies and floor wax, the same sterile scent it had when I was growing up. "Oh, you made it." I turned to see my mother standing in the foyer, holding a crystal wine glass. Her eyes did a rapid, sweeping assessment of me, starting from my modest heels, lingering on the lack of jewelry on my wrists, and finishing on my face. The disappointment was practically a physical force. "Hello, Mother," I said, offering a tight smile. "It's good to see you." She offered her cheek for a perfunctory kiss, making sure not to smudge her makeup. "You've cut your hair again, Rosalie. It's so severe. Honestly, you look like one of those boys at the gas station." "It's practical," I replied smoothly, refusing to take the bait. "Saves time in the morning." Before Patricia could launch into a lecture about femininity, a loud, braying laugh echoed from the living room. My older sister, Jessica, swept into the foyer, a vision in a custom emerald green gown, dripping in diamonds that caught the chandelier's light. Behind her was Todd, her husband. Todd was a man who looked exactly like the word portfolio, sounded slicked back hair, a tailored Italian suit, and a smile that never reached his eyes. "Rosalie!" Jessica practically sang, wrapping me in a brief, perfumed hug. "You're actually here!" And well, that's certainly a very sensible dress. "Did you get that at a department store?" "I did," I said. "It travels well." Todd stepped forward, extending a hand. He had the kind of grip that deliberately tried to crush yours. I kept my hand relaxed but unyielding, a trick you learn early on. "Good to see you, Rosalie," Todd said, looking me up and down with barely concealed pity. "Still pushing papers for Uncle Sam? What is it you do again? Quartermaster? Supply chain?" They didn't know. When I joined the military at 18, turning down my father's connections to Ivy League business schools, they had cut me off. Over the years, I had kept my communications vague. I told them I worked in logistics. I told them I handled schedules. It was easier than trying to explain the grueling reality of Ranger School, the classified deployments to the Middle East, or the fact that 2 months ago, Congress had confirmed my second star. I was a major general. "Something like that," I told Todd, keeping my voice even. "I move people and equipment from point A to point B." Todd chuckled, turning to my father, Richard, who had just wandered out of his study with a scotch in hand. "Hey, Dick, maybe I should hire Rosalie to run the shipping department at my new tech acquisition. Sounds like she's got the administrative experience down." My father gave me a nod of greeting, no hug, just a nod. Don't tease your sister, Jessica. We should be proud she's holding down a steady government job. The benefits are decent, I hear. But the pay, Patricia lamented, pressing a hand to her chest. Rosalie, darling, you're almost 40. You have no husband, no assets, no real career trajectory. You're practically a glorified truck dispatcher. If you had just listened to me and gone to Yale, I'm quite happy with my choices, Mother, I said. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a secure encrypted vibration pattern indicating a brief update from U.S. Special Operations Command. I ignored it. I was off the clock. Well, Jessica sighed, looping her arm through Todd's. Let's just get through tonight. Please, Rosalie, when we're at the country club, try not to bring up military things. It makes people uncomfortable. We're celebrating Todd's success tonight. Understood, I said. I carried my own bag up to my old bedroom. The room had been converted into a gym, a stark reminder that I hadn't had a place here for a very long time. I set my bag down, walked over to the mirror, and looked at myself. I saw the faint, jagged scar along my jawline from a piece of shrapnel in Kabul. I saw the permanent intensity in my eyes. I commanded a division of the most lethal, highly trained operators on the planet. I answered directly to the Joint Chiefs. Yet, standing in this house, I had to actively suppress the urge to justify my existence to people whose greatest daily challenge was securing a reservation at a Michelin star restaurant. I smoothed down the front of my navy dress, took a tactical breath to regulate my heart rate, and prepared to walk into the lion's den. The Oak Ridge Country Club was a masterclass in aggressive opulence. Valets sprinted back and forth, opening the doors of Bentleys and Aston Martins. Inside, the grand ballroom was draped in silk banners, the air heavy with the clinking of champagne flutes and the hum of forced networking. As a family, we made an entrance. Or rather, Jessica and Todd made an entrance, and I walked a few paces behind them like hired help. Almost immediately, we were swarmed by old classmates. People I hadn't seen in 2 decades pushed past me to shake Todd's hand or compliment Jessica's dress. When eyes occasionally fell on me, the recognition was slow and inevitably followed by thinly veiled pity. Rosalie? Oh my God, Rosalie Bennett, is that you? I turned to see Madison Hayes, the former head cheerleader, now clutching a martini and wearing a dress that cost more than a standard military vehicle tire. Hello, Madison. It's been a long time. Madison leaned in, her eyes darting over my plain attire. I heard you joined the Army. That is so brave. Honestly, I could never. The dirt, the lack of skincare. Are you still enlisted? Do they let you leave the base? I'm allowed out occasionally, I said, a dry smile touching my lips. Todd materialized beside us, practically vibrating with self-importance. Rosalie's our resident civil servant, Madison. She works in logistics. You know, making sure the motor pool has enough oil, signing out clipboards. We're trying to convince her to transition to the private sector before she ages out of the workforce entirely. Madison laughed, a high tinkling sound. Oh, Todd, you're so generous. Actually, Rosalie, my husband Brad just opened a chain of massive distribution warehouses across the state. They're always looking for night shift security supervisors. With your military background, I'm sure you'd be a shoo-in. It pays $20 an hour. My mother, who had materialized with predatory speed upon hearing the word husband, chimed in enthusiastically. Oh, Madison, what a wonderful opportunity. Rosalie, you should really take Brad's card. It's a step up from government bureaucracy, and you could finally start building a real savings account. For a fleeting second, the image of my actual office flashed through my mind, the secure skiff, the satellite feeds, the red phone on my desk. I thought of the global logistics network I controlled, maneuvering billions of dollars of classified assets and thousands of elite troops across hostile borders with zero margin for error. I appreciate the offer, Madison, I said smoothly, my voice completely devoid of the anger they expected. But I think my current employer would be quite reluctant to let me go. Todd scoffed, loudly enough to draw the attention of a small circle of affluent alumni standing nearby. Oh, come on, Rosalie, it's the government. You're a cog in a massive, inefficient machine. No offense, but you're entirely replaceable. If you quit tomorrow, some other grunt would just take your desk. Don't let pride keep you poor." The circle of classmates chuckled. My sister Jessica looked away, a smug smirk playing on her lips. My father took a long sip of his drink, refusing to intervene. They were enjoying this. My perceived failure was the foundation upon which they built their own superiority. "You're right, Todd," I said softly, my eyes locking onto his. I let a fraction of my command voice the voice that could freeze a room of battle-hardened colonels slip out. Pride is a dangerous thing. It blinds you to what's actually happening around you. Todd blinked, momentarily unnerved by my gaze, before shaking it off with a loud laugh. "Well, someone's been reading fortune cookies. Come on, Jess. Let's go mingle with the platinum sponsors." They drifted away, leaving me standing alone near a towering ice sculpture. I didn't feel humiliated. I just felt profoundly tired. The disconnect between my world and theirs was an abyss too wide to cross. Dinner was a meticulously plated affair that tasted like cardboard. Our family was seated at the VIP table near the front of the stage. Throughout the three-course meal, Todd held court, loudly recounting his financial conquests and dropping names of senators he claimed to have on speed dial. As the dessert plates were cleared, the Academy's headmaster took the stage to announce the awards. When Todd's name was called for Alumnus of the Decade, my family erupted in applause. Todd practically strutted to the podium, adjusting his silk tie with a practiced, camera-ready grin. His speech was a masterpiece of arrogant, faux humility. He thanked his wealth, his drive, and his beautiful wife. And then he made a catastrophic mistake. He looked down at our table, locking eyes with me, and decided to use me as a prop for his ego. You know, Todd spoke into the microphone, his voice booming across the silent ballroom of 500 people. "Success is a choice. Look at my own family. My sister-in-law Rosalie is here tonight. She chose the simple path. She joined the military, gave up her youth to push papers in a windowless office, making a fraction of what she could have if she'd only had the ambition. We love her, but she represents a sad truth. Some people are leaders, and some people are destined to just follow orders and fix the engines." A heavy, uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Several people turned in their chairs to stare at me. My mother looked mortified, not at Todd's cruelty, but at the public reminder of my existence. Jessica beamed, completely oblivious. I didn't flush. I didn't cry. I set my napkin down on the table with deliberate precision. I had spent 2 decades leading men and women through the gates of hell. Todd's words were nothing but the buzzing of a particularly annoying insect. I was about to stand up and quietly excuse myself to the terrace for some fresh air when my phone vibrated, not the casual buzz of a text message. It was the sustained, high-frequency pulse of the Tier 1 Alpha Alert. A Tier 1 Alpha Alert meant absolute, unmitigated crisis. It meant the Joint Chiefs were looking for me. I pulled the encrypted device from my clutch. The screen was flashing red. A single, authenticated text string crossed the screen. Target secured in Sector 4. Unexpected, heavy, hostile resistance. Extraction compromised. Immediate command override required. ETA. To your location. 4 minutes. My blood ran cold. The petty high school drama instantly vaporizing from my mind. I knew exactly what Sector 4 was. It was a Black Ops mission I had personally planned, and my people were trapped. They needed my authorization to call in an airstrike and alter the extraction coordinates, and they needed me on a secure satellite uplink right now. I stood up. The scraping of my chair against the hardwood floor echoed loudly, cutting through the scattered applause as Todd finished his speech. Patricia grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. "Rosalie, what are you doing? Sit down. You're embarrassing us," she hissed furiously. "Let go of me, Mother," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a lethal weight that made her instantly pull her hand back, as if she'd been burned. Todd stepped down from the stage, walking over to the table with a smug grin. "Can't take a little constructive criticism, Rosalie? Running away?" "Todd!" I said, my eyes scanning the massive glass windows of the ballroom that looked out over the expansive golf course. "Shut up!" His jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" I said, "Shut up," I repeated, tapping the earpiece I had subtly slipped into my right ear. I pressed the comms button hidden beneath the fabric of my dress. "Actual, this is Vanguard." "I'm reading your signal. Give me a sit rep." The room around me began to murmur. Madison, standing at the next table, leaned over. Is she talking to herself? In my ear, the frantic voice of a communications officer crackled to life. "Vanguard, thank God. We have a visual on your location. The situation in Sector 4 went sideways. We need you on the bird to authorize the Scorched Earth Protocol. We are inbound to your coordinates." "Copy that. I'm moving outside. Clear landing zone," I commanded. I turned and began walking briskly toward the massive double doors leading to the club's manicured 18th hole. My family scrambled up, rushing after me, desperate to stop what they perceived as a public meltdown. "You are ruining Todd's night," Jessica shrieked, grabbing my shoulder. "Who do you think you are? You're just a glorified clerk. Get back inside." I didn't answer her. I didn't have to, because at that exact moment, a low, rhythmic thumping began to echo through the night sky. It started as a vibration in the chest, a deep, mechanical pulse that grew louder by the second. The murmurs of the crowd behind me silenced. The jazz music from the ballroom seemed to fade away. "What is that noise?" Todd asked, his arrogant smirk finally faltering. "That," I said, my voice steady as steel, "is my ride." The thumping morphed into a deafening, chest-rattling roar. Over the tree line of the pristine 18th hole, a massive shape blotted out the stars. It was a heavily modified MH-60M Blackhawk, painted in radar-absorbent matte black, flying without anti-collision lights. To the civilians on the patio, it looked like a predatory shadow descending from the sky. The downdraft hit us a second later. Hurricane-force winds slammed into the terrace. Tablecloths whipped violently into the air, scattering fine china and crystal glassware across the stone patio with a symphony of shattering noise. Jessica screamed, throwing her arms over her face as her meticulously styled hair was instantly destroyed, the wind tearing at her expensive emerald gown. Todd stumbled backward, his scotch slipping from his hand and exploding against the brick wall. My father grabbed the iron railing just to stay upright, his mouth hanging open in sheer terror. I didn't flinch. I leaned slightly into the rotor wash, the familiar scent of aviation fuel and ionized air washing over me, erasing the cloying smell of expensive perfumes. The Black Hawk flared, its tail dropping as the pilots expertly maneuvered the massive aircraft over the manicured putting green. The landing gear touched down with a heavy, unceremonious thud, instantly tearing deep trenches into the flawless turf. Before the wheels even settled, the side doors slid open. 4 operators from a Tier 1 Special Missions unit piled out. They were fully kitted night vision goggles pushed up on their fast helmets, plate carriers loaded with magazines, and suppressed rifles held at the low ready. They didn't look at the screaming socialites or the cowering alumni. They moved with predatory efficiency, fanning out in a standard perimeter defense around the aircraft, treating the Oak Ridge Country Club as a hostile landing zone. The crowd on the patio was frozen in absolute terrified silence, save for the whining of the helicopter's twin turboshaft engines. A 5th figure stepped out of the cabin and jogged across the ruined grass toward me. It was Captain Reynolds, my senior intelligence liaison. He was in full combat fatigues, a ruggedized tactical tablet clutched against his chest. He stopped precisely 3 paces in front of me, ignoring my family completely, and snapped a textbook salute. "Madam General," Reynolds shouted, his voice cutting through the mechanical roar, "the Joint Chiefs are on the secure SATCOM. Bravo team is pinned down. We need your authorization for danger close ordnance, and we need it 3 minutes ago." I returned the salute, the muscle memory taking over. Status of the extraction birds? Holding 2 miles out, taking ground fire. "They won't make it in unless we clear the ridge, ma'am." "It's your call." "I'm on it," I said. I turned around. My family was staring at me, as if I had just taken off a human mask to reveal an alien beneath. Todd's face was completely drained of color. The arrogant, booming executive was gone, replaced by a trembling, utterly bewildered man. Jessica's hands were clamped over her mouth. My mother, Patricia, looked as though her knees were about to give out. General? Todd choked out, the word barely audible over the rotors. What? What is this? Rosalie, what is happening? I looked at him. I didn't feel any vindication. I didn't feel the triumphant surge of petty revenge I might have craved in my 20s. I just looked at a small man who built his entire worth on insulting others, standing next to a family who had chosen an illusion over their own daughter. I told you, Todd, I said, my voice cold and flat. I move people and equipment from point A to point B. But, a general? My father stammered, stepping forward, his eyes darting between me and the heavily armed operators standing on the golf course. You told us you were a clerk. You said you did logistics. I do logistics, Dad, for the United States Special Operations Command, I replied. I reached up and pulled the simple silver hair tie from my head, letting my short hair fall loose. I command the people who do the things you pretend don't exist so you can sleep safely in your gated communities. Rosalie, my mother whispered, tears streaking her ruined makeup. We didn't know. Why didn't you tell us? Because you never asked, Mother. You just assumed. I turned my back to them. There was no time for a family therapy session. Men were dying in the dark, thousands of miles away, waiting on my word. Let's go, Captain, I ordered, striding past the operators and stepping up onto the skids of the Black Hawk. I strapped into the canvas jump seat. Reynolds slid in beside me, instantly handing me the heavy headset and the tactical tablet. I didn't look back out the door. I didn't care about the expressions on their faces as the crew chief pulled the heavy sliding door shut with a metallic slam, cutting off the sight of my family, the country club, and the life I had left behind 20 years ago. Up, 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 the pilot's voice crackled in my ear. The floorboards vibrated violently as the Black Hawk tore itself away from the earth, banking hard to the west. Inside the cabin, a dim, tactical red glow bathed the aluminum bulkheads. The air carried the sharp, distinct odors of hot electronics, weapon lubricant, and sweat. It was the scent of my actual reality, instantly grounding my nerves. The petty, echoing insults of the country club dissolved entirely, replaced by the rigid, ice-cold focus required for combat command. I plugged my heavy headset into the aircraft's overhead communications console. This is Vanguard. I have the feed. Captain Reynolds handed me the ruggedized tablet. It displayed a grainy, thermal imaging feed from an MQ-9 Reaper drone loitering 20,000 feet above a nameless, jagged mountain range in Sector 4. The screen showed a chaotic layout of stark white heat blooms against a dark gray topographical landscape. I tracked the tiny, clustered white dots of my men Bravo team, huddled behind a crumbling stone wall. Surrounding them on three sides were dozens of moving heat signatures, steadily bounding up the steep ridgeline. The strobing flashes of heavy machine gun fire lit up the infrared feed. Vanguard, this is Joint Chiefs Command. Bravo is Winchester on heavy munitions. They are taking RPG fire. Extraction is impossible under these current conditions. The tense voice of a four-star admiral cut through the static in my ear. I see it, Command, I replied. My thumb hovered over the digital map, measuring the distance between the advancing hostile line and Bravo team's precarious position. Less than 200 meters. A standard payload drop would kill my own operators through the sheer concussive blast wave alone. Reynolds, I barked over the mechanical roar of the helicopter. What asset do we have on station? We have an AC-130 gunship, call sign Spooky 22, currently orbiting at Angels 15, Reynolds answered, his fingers flying rapidly across his own terminal keys. But General, the hostiles are right on top of them. The fragmentation radius of the 105mm shells will cross Bravo's perimeter. It's too close. I stared at the thermal feed. The enemy signatures were closing the gap. Bravo team would be overrun in less than 2 minutes. This was the brutal mathematics of survival that Todd and his wealthy friends could never comprehend. This was the true crushing cost of the 2 stars on my collar. Get Spooky 22 on my net, I ordered. A moment later, the steady drawl of the gunship pilot filled my headset. Vanguard, Spooky 22. We have tally on the hostiles, but it's danger close. We need a command override to fire. I keyed the mic, my voice entirely flat. Spooky 2-2, this is Vanguard. Authorizing danger close. Switch to the 40mm Bofors cannon. Walk the fire down the ridgeline, north to south. Keep it exactly 100 meters out from Bravo's beacon. Do not use the 105. Copy Vanguard. Firing 40mm. Stand by. I held my breath. The vibrating floorboards of the Black Hawk faded away. I was thousands of miles away, standing in the dirt on that mountain with my men. On the glowing screen, the dark gray hillside suddenly erupted. Massive white bursts of thermal energy hammered the rocky ridge in a precise, linear sequence. The AC-130 rained surgical devastation from the sky. The advancing enemy heat signatures vanished into the bright, explosive blooms, obliterated instantly. Adjust fire south 50 meters, I commanded. Adjusting south. Rounds out. More thermal explosions blossomed on the tablet. The hostile perimeter shattered. The surviving heat signatures turned and began scrambling down the opposite side of the mountain face in a blind panic. Command. Hostile forces are breaking contact. Push the extraction birds in now, I said. I watched the screen for 6 agonizing, silent minutes. 2 large heat signatures swooped into the frame, hovering low over the stone wall. The small white dots representing my operators scrambled from their cover and merged with the extraction helicopters. Vanguard, this is Bravo Actual. A breathless, deeply exhausted voice crackled over the radio. We are on the birds. We are wheels up. Thanks for the fire support, General. We owe you a beer. My shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. Good job, Bravo. See you back at base. Vanguard out. I pulled the headset off and let it rest around my neck, handing the tablet back to Reynolds. The adrenaline crash hit immediately, leaving a heavy ache in my muscles. ETA to the command center is 40 minutes, General Reynolds said quietly. You want to get some sleep? No, I murmured, turning my head to look out the scratched polycarbonate window. Below us, the suburban grid stretched out into an endless sea of amber streetlights and dark highways. Somewhere back there, Todd was likely still picking his shattered ego off the patio floor. My mother was probably already spinning a new narrative to the country club alumni, claiming my secret rank as her own personal parenting victory. I realized, feeling the steady vibration of the helicopter engines, that I simply didn't care. For 2 decades, I had carried the invisible weight of their judgment. I had worn plain clothes and downplayed my entire existence just to avoid their relentless condescension. But staring down at the dark landscape, after pulling 6 men out of a kill zone, their affluent world felt microscopic. They mocked the clerk, and tomorrow they would undoubtedly try to worship the general. But neither version of me belonged to them anymore. I belonged to the men and women who trusted me with their lives. I belonged to the heavy, unglamorous truth of the uniform. I turned away from the window and rested my boots against the deck. Captain, I said, my voice steady and clear. Yes, General? When we land, I need a secure line to the Pentagon. We have an after-action report to file. Understood, ma'am. I didn't look back at the city. I faced forward, ready for the work. Did Rosalie's family finally get the reality check they deserved, or will they just find another way to make her success about themselves? True worth isn't measured by the price tag on your clothes or the boasting at a country club, but by the quiet burdens you carry when no one is watching. If you loved this story of ultimate vindication and silent strength, please hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramatic stories.